gold, glory, and girls. I thought, man, if I just had all three of these things, I wouldn't need anything else. Yeah. And it's not until you have those things that you realize that that's not what life's about. That's not what fills your heart. And I still had that void in my life that I couldn't fill, regardless of how much gold, glory, and girls I had.
Hey guys, I'm here today with Ron Waterman, and Ron has a long list of accomplishments, everything from fighting and professional wrestling in the WWE, stepping into the octagon in the UFC. He is an author, a motivational speaker, and he's here to make an impact on the world. And what he's here to talk about today is that you are given a platform and you are given a group of people to speak to, and it's important what you say, how you say it, and that you don't just focus on what's happening in this world, but where you spend eternity. Check it out. Are you a faith-based father and looking for intentional ways to connect with your son in a big way? If so, you have to check out the Father-Son Hike of a Lifetime on the Camino de Santiago in Spain. June 2025, I am taking a group of faith-based fathers and their sons over to Spain for 9 days and the adventure of a lifetime. Go check it out at mattshoup.com/Spain. On that page, you'll actually see all of my upcoming Spain adventures, but make sure to check out the Father-Son Hike of a Lifetime. Ron Waterman.
Thanks for being here, bud.
Thanks for hanging.
Heck yeah.
We just wrapped up a coffee bar, had a bunch of people here, and
it was awesome.
You shared your story.
We had 25 people in there.
It was. Yeah, it was cool. It's been really fun to see those grow, and thanks for spending the afternoon with us.
You've got a good thing going here.
Thank
I
you.
like it.
Thank you.
It's a great environment.
It's one of those things. We bought the building in 2020, right during COVID, had this huge dream, and then boom, just COVID shut everything down. Gym got shut down for a little bit. Like, okay, this is going to be interesting. But it's finally, those seeds you plant.
That's right.
And those investments you make, we're finally starting to see them grow, like sprout and grow.
That's right.
It's been awesome.
I think it's got a bright future too.
So you've got such a story. You just told us a story about Chubby.
I did.
I loved that. I knew a couple minutes into the story, but yeah, just share a little bit. We met through mutual friend Troy. You and Troy Pettyjohn go back.
Yeah, Troy
decades.
Got me into mixed martial arts, basically.
Man,
yeah, he's the one. He was my very first corner man.
That's crazy.
The Boss Root Invitational, clear back in 1998.
Okay, so 98. So I'm junior in high school at Loveland High.
Yeah,
and you're out of school by then. Oh, yeah. Right? Okay. Because you're how old?
59.
Okay, so you're a little bit older than me.
A little bit.
Okay, so you're a little bit older. And then so you're wrestling, right? Just wrestling, and then they're like, go to an MMA fight?
Yeah, pretty much. I had zero mixed martial arts experience, college wrestler. And just, that's what I came in at. Like, all these wrestlers were just killing it, though, at the time, like Mark Coleman and Mark Kerr. Those guys were just dominating the UFC. So I'm like, I can do this. So
had you been square punched in the face? You know how they say like the first time. So you'd never just taken a punch right to the mouth. Okay. So were you nervous about that? Your wrestling was so good and you saw that? Were you pretty confident?
I was pretty confident.
Were you?
Like, I'm just going to go ahead and take the guy down, and nobody's going to stop my takedown anyway. And I'm just going to ground and pound him.
How was stepping in that cage for you that first time?
It's a little nerve-wracking, but being a wrestler my whole life, just that one-on-one, walking out to the middle of the mat together, like probably alleviated a lot of that stress that I think people that aren't wrestlers don't. Gold, glory, and girls. I thought, man, if I just had all three of these things, I wouldn't need anything else. Yeah. And it's not until you have those things that you realize that that's not what life's about. That's not what fills your heart. And I still had that void in my life that I couldn't fill, regardless of how much gold, glory, and girls I had. Scrounging up any body I can to come up and
come on, let's go
and roll with me for 2 hours. And
the evolution of the sport. So we were talking about that a little bit just offline of where mixed martial arts started and where it is today. But back then, so Boss Root and Invitational, was that prior to UFC? That was prior to UFC 1.
Yeah. No.
Or no, that was post.
Yeah, because I won that tournament, 3 fights in one night, and was invited to the next UFC, which was UFC 20.
Oh, so you're already way in there. Okay, I'm mixing up my time then. Okay. Yeah.
A few years.
Just a couple.
Yeah.
Dang. So first fight, you come out of there, were you just totally hooked? Like I'm coming back?
Yeah, because I literally walked through all 3 fights that night in probably less than 2 minutes. total time. So, and the matchmaker, the official, is John Peretti, who was the matchmaker for the UFC.
Okay.
So immediately after the fight, he walks up to me and it's like, "You're going to the next UFC."
How was that?
3 fights and I'm in the UFC.
Was that surreal?
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Expected, would you say? So when you went into that first one, did you like dream to go to the UFC? Was it like, hey, MMA, I can do this, 3 fights?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that it was expected, but it was all kind of surreal.
Yeah.
And then, 2 months later, I'm walking out to the octagon, like this stuff I'd been watching on TV. And back then it was almost taboo, like there were so many people against the UFC and 2 guys, brawling in the middle of a cage. They called it human cockfighting. And
yeah, it's come a long way back in the day, right? It was not, I mean, how many states was it sanctioned in, right? I mean, there was very few.
Very few.
And they I mean, even just recently they were finally getting final sanctions.
Right.
In states. That's wild. That's crazy. So you shared, we were here talking to the business owners and business leaders, and you were telling the story about growing up. And talk about that a little bit. Just what you went through. You were sharing the story of Chubby.
Yeah. I was this short little chubby kid that got picked on because I was a short little fat kid all the way through probably, I don't know, 4th or 5th grade, and got made fun of. I was a slow learner. So it's kind of added to the whole bullying aspect of it because, I just didn't learn very fast. So kind of an easy target for people to pick on and make fun of. And in the 4th grade, I had a teacher that said, "Why don't you try out for our school's wrestling team?" And for the first time in my life, I just went all in. It's like, I'll try this, and found out I was pretty dang good at it and started to get some success. And those bullies that made fun of me and picked on me were all of a sudden cheering for me. And it just kind of turned my life around. Just that one teacher's belief in me.
Who's that teacher?
It was Mr. Clark was his name.
Is he still around?
I haven't seen him for years.
Oh, man.
I haven't seen him for years, but he was there. He was the gym coach for a long time.
Did you have a chance after you started progressing in your career to go back? And
Absolutely. I actually went back and student taught for him. Yeah.
Did you really?
Yeah, it was really cool.
And what school was this?
And that was at Meeker Elementary in over in Greeley.
Okay.
Greeley, Colorado.
That's crazy. He's not still teaching.
No. It's been done for a while.
Man, that's so cool. It's crazy how just one thing you mentioned to somebody, right, could totally change the trajectory of their life.
That's right.
That's wild.
Just built my confidence up and just continued to wrestle year after year and got better and better and worked harder and harder and got in really good shape. And all of a sudden now I'm looking at myself and I'm not the short little chubby kid anymore. I'm one of the biggest, strongest kids in the school. And
were you chubby? Was that like bad diet, bad eating habits, genetics? Were you always a chubby kid? Was that like, how did you get to that point? Was it
probably bad eating habits? I mean, I was just ate everything I could. I was the oldest of 3. So my brother was a skinny kid because he never got any food because I ate it all.
You just like, see, I'm taking your food. And you were 10 pounds. You were 10 pounds when you were born.
Yeah, 10-2.
Dang.
And my mom was 16.
Wow.
And a tiny little thing. Yeah.
Man, wow.
I know.
So now, I mean, so UFC, WWE, traveling the world, Team Impact. I mean, so many things. You've got such a platform, right? From everything that you've done, from that one teacher's suggestion that you follow, and now we're sitting here years and years later. Talk about what you're doing now, because you just shared, your biggest purpose of why you're here on this planet. And
right.
It was super cool what you just shared with everybody here.
Yeah, it was neat because, I was one of those kids was super goal oriented, and I think that was instilled in me from sports, thinking I want to be the best I can, and if I'm going to be the best I can, I have to work harder than everybody else is. So, and that's kind of the way my whole life has been, even with academics and grades. It's like it's going to take me a lot more than it is everybody else, so I'm going to have to work way harder than they are to get by. So, I just kind of a mindset that I had, but just being that goal oriented kid took me all the way through my young adult life. And shooting for goals, and even in college, trying to become an All-American and working as hard as I could, and then my young adult life, I got married my 2nd year of college and had a son the year after that, and you just get caught up in the world and living for all those things that you think the world wants you to live for, So I'm working as hard as I can, end up getting the contract in the UFC and then the WWE, and now I'm making crazy money and able to buy the big house, drive around on the $100,000 Hummer and have all those things and put in a video game and being in magazines and on TV every other week and thinking that that's going to be the perfect life.
Everybody thinks that's the pinnacle, like love to be there, love what that guy has.
Right.
What was the reality of that, of what was really going on with Ron Waterman at that time?
The reality was, I think that I thought that was all that there was. Like that, man, once you get to this level, what else do you need? And realized that it's not all you need. Like I was still so empty inside. And even the people that achieve those levels, even to the 10th degree, like they've got 10 houses and they've got cars all over the world, houses all over the world, and all those things. And you just think that, man, you can't get any better than that. And at 32, I realized that's not it. And I said this in our meeting earlier, that you can't say no to the things of the world until you first said yes to Christ in your life. And I realized at 32 that I needed Jesus, and made that decision one day in a church. My dad had been begging me to go back and sit in on church service, and I'd turned him down for years before that, saying, I don't have time to do this. And at 32, I was at such a low point in my life with my marriage, with my career, with my kids. And I was like, went to that church service that day and heard the Lord speak to me for the first time. And my heart started beating fast. I started to sweat. My eyes are tearing up, and I didn't even know what was going on, but I knew God was getting my attention. And at the end of that service that day, the pastor said, if you've never surrendered your life to Christ, he goes, I'm going to give you an opportunity to do that today. And I knew he was speaking to me, and I said, Lord, I surrender. Walked to the front of that altar and surrendered my life to Christ, and never looked back.
So leading up to that, did you attend church? Were you exposed to Jesus?
I was
the faith
exposed
growing up.
I went to a Lutheran church
Okay.
With my family till I was probably about 14, 15. And then my parents ended up getting divorced. So I did what most kids do, weekend with mom, weekend with dad. Those weekends didn't involve church anymore. And then when I'm old enough to make the decision on my own, I was too busy, too many things to do. So I didn't step back into a church for probably the next 15, 20 years.
But it was dad nudging you.
It was dad nudging me.
And then in the the pursuit of you talked about the 3 G's.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of, especially young men, think of the same thing, but I was living for the 3 G's. And I put that in the book that I wrote, Gold, Glory, and Girls. I thought, man, if I just had all 3 of these things, I wouldn't need anything else. Yeah. And it's not until you have those things that you realize that that's not what life's about. That's not what fills your heart. And I still had that void in my life that I couldn't fill, regardless of how much gold, glory, and girls I had.
Do you need a new roof or new paint job on your home or business and live in Northern Colorado? If so, check out one of our sponsors, M&E Painting and Roofing. We've been around for 20 years here in the community, and full disclosure, I am the M in M&E. Check them out at mdepainting.com. Are you a business owner who is struggling to understand and navigate the world of digital media? If so, check out one of our sponsors, Imprint Digital. They are the go-to source for everything digital related to your business. Not only are they a sponsor, but they also take care of all of our company's website. They produce this podcast, and I highly recommend them. Check them out at imprint-digital.com. And as you're pursuing those things, in your mixed martial arts and WWE and traveling the world, are you exposed to Jesus at all? Or are you so focused on those 3 G's? Was there anybody or any situations where God or Jesus was reintroduced to you, presented to you? Or were you just going so hard and fast you didn't even know?
It was kind of an interesting story because I actually accepted the Lord about 6 months before my very first fight that I had in the UFC. And that's when I made that walk in that church. And then a year later, I get this WWE contract where I have to move away from my family and live in Kentucky. And that's where the kind of the training grounds.
So they've got their
for the
training
WWE,
camp, right?
Yeah. So I'm living out there for almost a year, and I'm, living with, all these big, huge giants. You've got Brock Lesnar and Dave Bautista and John Cena and Randy Orton, and the Big Show was down there, and Mark Henry, and just all these giants. But anyway, I get thrown into this environment and had zero accountability, like nothing to keep me on the path that I needed to be on. And being a young Christian, I went in with great intentions, thinking, "Wow, I'm gonna make a mark. I'm gonna hold Bible studies after our matches." And I was serious. I really thought this is all going to happen, and I was just so outnumbered, and the enemy just hit me so hard that I couldn't keep that path, and I stumbled hard.
And that industry, though, we were talking a little bit about that before. In between Coffee Bar and now, you can't go into that and get out of that unscathed. There's so much just travel and abuse to your body and the lifestyle and the opportunity for just any kind of debauchery you want, right? That's right at your fingertips, and everybody's traveling maybe above the law to a certain degree, and it's just there, right? You can't avoid that, right? You can't avoid that at all.
No, and the amount of time that I was in there, just seeing that environment and seeing the people that were just so caught up in it, and even like your top superstars, and just trying to live that life. And like, you see very, very few that have successful marriages and healthy lives and, drug-free and are doing things like they're supposed to be doing. And I just couldn't live that life. And it was weird at the time because when my contract ended after a couple of years, I guess I just didn't understand, like, why am I not being able to stay in this and become the next superstar? And I'm just so focused on being the best, regardless of what I'm doing, that I didn't understand it at the time. But it was about a year after I was out that I started traveling with another group of professional athletes, with a ministry called Team Impact. And one of the guys that was wrestling with me in the WWE actually introduced me to this group because he used to travel with a group called the Power Team back in the day. And I had seen these guys on television before and heard some of the things that they did. And I thought, man, that might be something I could really get into. And so anyway, I got up the guts to send an email to the owner of Team Impact at the time. And they called me on the phone 30 minutes after I sent the email, flew me out to Texas the next week. And I went on my very first crusade with a bunch of NFL football players and a bunch of professional athletes. And I was just like, holy cow, these guys are, again, giants and really amazing guys, but it was night and day difference from the crowd that I had been spending the last 2 years with.
Yeah, you get to still use the physical strength and everything that gave you that platform in
and you're still
WWE, but you're making an impact.
You're up on the stage and people are cheering for you and chanting your name. But, now I'm blowing up a hot water bottle until it explodes in my face, and I'm breaking a bat over my leg and smashing bricks that are on fire. And so you still kind of got that rush and that adrenaline pump that I think was so cool. But to see these guys and the way they live their lives was the biggest impact to me. And hearing these guys at night praying on the phone with their wives before they go to bed, and you don't room alone. Everybody had, a roommate. So it's just that accountability factor and just such a godly environment that I'm like, immediately knew this is where God wants me.
So like you're just hooked. That's the calling. That's the way you can use what God's given you, that platform, and then you're all over the world.
Yeah,
right? You guys are. Were you traveling just as much, would you say, as WWE?
There were times that I was full time and we were going hard. Sometimes 3 weeks, sometimes 4 weeks out of the month, or you getting home a couple of days, which was hard because I had teenage boys, and that was definitely a struggle. But I felt like it was time that God was using me for, like Jesus said to his disciples, follow me, and I'll make everything right. You're serving me, and that's kind of the attitude I had that whole time. Like, I'm being used to further the kingdom now.
So you're on this platform, right? And you got people cheering and screaming, and you've been in the octagon, you've been in the squared circle, right? It's people screaming your name. You're with Team Impact. I've heard from a lot of people that are in those positions and on those platforms that, the coolest moments are the ones that are outside of those stages. But what was the coolest moment, Team Impact, that was most memorable for you?
I think overall, when I'm looking at myself up on the stage, and, you do get a adrenaline rush from doing those big feats of strength and having the people clap and celebrate. But the neatest thing for me was at the end of the night when you've shared your testimony and you've told the crowds, sometimes thousands and thousands of people you're talking to, that they're not on this earth for themselves. They're, where's your eternity going to be spent? And at the end of the night, we would do an altar response, and to see 1,000 people come walking up to the front of the altar, and to see the little kid that you were at their elementary school that week walk up holding the hands of their parents, and all of them get down on their knee and ask Christ into their life. And that was the moment. I was like, I still get goosebumps to this day when I see that.
That's so cool.
People changing their lives and submitting to the Lord.
So totally random question, because you just, an hour ago, Joey, hour and a half ago, you pulled Kevin Voorhees up, right?
Right.
Like, here, rip this phone book apart. And he's a big dude. He's a big, strong guy.
He is a big
You're like, break this bat over your leg. He's like, no. And then you just doing it. So when you join Team Impact, I mean, you're wrestling, right, with and alongside the biggest of giants and WWE. You're smashing guys in the octagon. How do you learn? Did you just know how to rip a phone book in half when you joined? Is it just you're just that strong, you know how to do it? Do they train you on how to do that?
I was a little bit shocked the first crusade I went on, because a lot of the stuff they're just like the hot water bottle. Like, it's just miserable. I mean, you literally put like 80 breaths into this thing, and it's so hard to get started. It's this hard rubber bottle, and you blow it up and you're sweating. So, air's going out as fast as it's going in sometimes.
Yep.
And you've got to hold it tight to your face, and then that thing explodes and just slaps you in the face. But, there's no training on a lot of this stuff.
You just jump in and do it, right?
Sometimes there's a little bit of technique here and there, and leverage and stuff like that. But
do you have a favorite one? Because you did the phone book in the bat right outside here.
Well, back in the day when my shoulders weren't so destroyed, I loved lifting a telephone pole over my head. We would pick out poles when we go, and then we'd actually cut handles into them. And sometimes we would light the ends on fire, and we'd walk up to it and try to deadlift it, and then clean it up to your chest, and then press it all the way over our head. And I was the one that they usually called to do that. But after they would average probably between 300 and 400 pound logs. So it was great at the time, but now I'm like, no, my shoulders aren't going to handle that.
Yeah. How's your body? I mean, like Troy and I were talking the other day. I've had neck surgery, back surgery. Yeah. He's had bicep, all kinds of stuff, super injured. But I mean, what's your injury resume looking like?
Over the years, you think about 26 professional fights and all the years in WWE, it come out pretty dang good. But both of my biceps were torn. I actually tore one bicep a week before my second UFC fight. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to let them know now, because I'll get pulled from this fight. So fought with a torn bicep and came home the next day, and they surgically repaired it. And then I tore the other one a couple of years later. So, but besides those, and, broke my orbital one time, got hit by Rico Rodriguez so hard in the orbital that it broke my orbital bone. But, I can't complain. I get migraines now occasionally, but
do you? But that's not bad for everything you put your body through compared to some of the guys. Just some of the guys here just training jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, and that's usually when you get hurt is in training. It's not the fight itself.
Yeah. So you're a full-time firefighter. You're a pastor firefighter. right down the street here in Berthoud at Grace Place, and just talk about that. Your middle school, high school youth group leader, right? You've got 100 students, and you said 30 of them are leaders within the group that you
leaders,
lead. How's that transition been, and just jumping into that space?
It's a funny, youth leaders right now average about a year and a half. That's as long as they last in the industry. And I was coming in after pretty much that same statistic. There had been 3 youth leaders in the last 4 years, and I'm stepping into the ministry now and taking over. So it's always kind of a hard transition because the kids just fall in love with their youth leaders. And then all of a sudden one day they're just like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And they're gone. So that transition was hard with the kids as well as the leaders, trying to build their trust and let them know that, hey, I'm here for the long haul. I'm not using this as a stepping stone to become a head pastor. I'm just doing this because I love kids and I want to serve. But doing it on top of being a firefighter is a little bit of a challenge because I'm at the fire department 48 hours every week and then off for 4 days. So I'm trying to work that schedule around my pastoral schedule and making sure I get Sundays off. And I've got that time. And like this last weekend, I was at winter camp. So for 3 days straight, and it's a big time commitment, but it's an adjustment that I made. But in my past, I've been gone so much with all of my traveling and the things that I do that my wife is on board with it. And as you know, when you get called to ministry, so does your family and your wife, and they've got to understand the responsibility and the cost.
Yeah, and there's a demand, right? 'Cause it's another level of the demand in the spiritual sense, and it you pour a lot into people, but it can be draining.
It can be, yeah.
How do you balance that? Like, how do you just obviously it's the time commitment and time management, but it's like you're pouring into so many people, and that takes something from you to a certain degree. So like, how do you stay refueled and keep your cup filled? So I think that's important for leaders in general, but anybody just in the ministry space, right? When it's the spiritual realm and you're doing it for Jesus, there's other layers of things that start coming at you.
Yeah, you have to have your own outlets and ways that you could do some dumping. And, I have that somewhat with my wife where we talk about stresses and stuff that I'm going through. I've got people that I work with that are also have open doors. And, when you need to talk about stuff, you've got hard questions or you're dealing with something that's hard to get that off your chest. And then probably the biggest thing for me is, I do have my own devotional time that I take time out of every single day to make sure that that's my first priority. So when I wake up in the morning, I know I'm in the Word and I'm spending my time praying, and that's how I start every single day. We're doing the Bible in a year this year with our church, and it's been pretty powerful.
I'm doing the Tara Lee Cottle has an app. Are you doing that?
I did that last year.
You did that last year? Yeah, I just started that one.
So good. She's amazing.
Yeah, she's good. Yeah. She's built quite a business too.
Yeah.
Because I'm obviously following and reading the Bible, but she's got quite a little business model there. She does her trips, and it's super cool what she's built.
Yeah, it would be cool to go on one of those trips with her.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's a cool app. It's a 7-8 minute video, and
it's a short video,
2-3 chapters.
But you've got to discipline yourself to make sure that you get those chapters read every day, and it's a little bit of a time commitment. It's a good 20 to 30 minutes every single day. Yeah, that you've got to devote to getting into the Word.
Yeah, you did an altar call here. We had such a diverse crowd of people. Some are Jesus followers, some are not. Yep. Some are thinking about it, or they were, or they're not. But like, what do you see being in that space, working with the youth and working with the kids? Obviously, at church, they're Jesus following, right?
Well, you would assume. You would assume that.
Are they all?
But they're not.
Yeah, you got friends bringing friends that
exactly.
aren't. And how do you? What do you do? What do you encourage somebody that's called to that space, or they're a Jesus follower, they're in front of kids? Just what are some of the ways that you start those conversations? Because I remember middle school, man, people were trying to start them, but not in the right way. And it's just such an interesting time. We were talking about that middle school transition and everything. How do you break through or plant those seeds?
Yeah, because you don't want to be that Bible thumper that comes at people too hard, and you're beating them over the head with the Bible, and you're going to hell if you're not using that aspect. So it's a lot about relationships and building that trust with the kids. And like I talked about over lunch today, I mean, the kids want to be seen. They want to know that you know them. So show interest. Like,
Yeah.
What are they interested in? Go to their basketball game, go to their football game, and show them that you care. And most of all, how are you living your life? Like, they should look up to you by what you're doing, not necessarily what you're saying. And they should see that light burning inside of you and see Christ. So they'll be seeking more than you have to, like, okay, this is what you have to do. Don't do this and don't do this and do this. And
there's a lot of Christians saying a lot of things. Like,
absolutely.
I see what you're saying, but then I see what you're doing and how you're treating people.
Right.
And Joey, you and I talk about this a lot. Like, Joey, you grew up with some great ones, didn't you? I did too.
Some real winners.
Just all the boxes, right? Like all the boxes of the stereotypical, just.
Yeah. And it can be it can be so hurtful. Like, you can turn people.
Yeah.
I hear it all the time. I got turned away from the church because this guy was such a hypocrite, or this gal was such a hypocrite. They were saying this, and so they turn away from the church for sometimes years. And you got to be careful. You're called to a higher standard.
If you're a Christian business owner in Northern Colorado, check out one of our sponsors, the Foundry Advisory. The Foundry is a Christian peer-to-peer advisory network where you can plug in as a business owner, not only to talk about how to improve your business, but how to integrate your faith. Check them out at thefoundryadvisory.com. And remember, they're not only a sponsor, but I'm also a member of their group. If you have a story to share and you're thinking of becoming an author to do so, you have to connect with one of our sponsors, Scribe Media. I worked with Scribe to publish Painted Baby, and I'm currently working with them again to publish my next book, Pour Into People. Click on the link in the show notes below to connect with them, and they'll actually give you a little something extra because you came to them through me. I got laughed out of a high school. It was middle and high school, but I was in high school. It was a group here in town, and they asked us to do just something that was super, super silly. And I'm like, oh, I'm not going to do that. You guys already think you're kind of weird. And it was like led by the youth group leader, and just like literally laughed me out of the room. It's crazy. I'm like, I'm not coming back to this.
Right.
It was wild. Like, no, I want nothing to do with that. So, I carried that through college. Like, I'm almost dead in the field, OD'd, like wanting nothing to do with that. So it's crazy, the opportunity and the platform you have, and how you have to be so careful and conscious with it, with what you say, how you behave, and people are watching you, man.
Absolutely. All the time. And you may not even realize it, but I can't think of a person out there that's not watched by someone and watching your actions, and the way you respond to things, the way you answer questions, the way you live your life is setting a mark.
In middle school, that's when, I know that's like for my kids. How about yours? Is that when they start to know more than your parents?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
And then they got you. They're like watching for the getchas.
Yeah. I just spent a weekend in Fraser, Colorado with a bunch of high school kids, and they know everything, and you're not going to tell them anything that they don't already know. But it was a powerful weekend. I mean, you saw 630 kids worshiping together and seeing how God can move in that group and break through some of those struggles that they have. And man, that's just what makes it all worthwhile when you see those high school kids being vulnerable and being open with their struggle, and other kids coming around them and saying, hey, we're here with you.
Yeah. And there was a gal, she spoke at Coffee Bar last week. She works on a campus ministry at CSU, and she was showing the statistics of, your people introduced to the gospel at this age. And then it, like right after that college age, the chances that somebody's going to
drops dramatically.
It drops a bunch.
Yeah.
Have you ever looked at those? Because it was peaking. Joey, you weren't here for that. Were you here last week, Joey? No, you weren't here for that. But it was crazy. It had peaked in college, but really was growing quite high, even up through middle and high school.
Yeah. It's really exciting at my church. We just started a young adults ministry, and it's just so cool to see that age group of people that, that they're heading off to their first year of college, but to get tied in with a young adult ministry that's on fire for the Lord is just powerful. I mean, I think of myself as a freshman in college. I'm like, man, if I had that would have saved me so much struggle in my life.
So with as busy as you are, right, with you've got full-time firefighting, and then close to full-time.
Yeah, full-time pastor.
Ministry. Where do you see the direction of that? Like how long you want to be firefighting? Where do you want to ultimately go?
I think I'm just one of those people that just sits back and listens to where God leaves me. And I think that I'm going to do this as long as I can. I've still got an 11-year-old little girl at home, so I'd like to see another, until she graduates from high school, stay at the fire department. And I still love that job. It's another aspect of serving. I get to see people at, in some of their worst days and try to help and make it better. But there's been lots of times where I'll be in the back of the ambulance and I'll find myself in deep prayer for somebody and praying for them and with them. And it's cool how God can use you.
I love that. How's it raising a daughter?
Oh, it's so different.
You've got older sons. You said one of them's getting into fighting.
Yeah.
Now he's got a fight coming
Austin.
up. Oh, it's different. It's different with a daughter.
So different.
Is she boy crazy yet?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah.
See, my daughter was. Yeah, I was on it.
Right.
But you watched Bad Boys too, right?
Oh yeah.
So who's going to be your second bad boy? So like you and Brock? Because I got my friend Chris Hokum. Chris fought some MMA. He lives right down the street. I'm like, we're gonna told Haley we're gonna bad boys whatever boy comes by.
That's right.
Who'd be your if you're Will Smith? Who'd be your Martin Lawrence that you bring by? Because you know quite a bit of killers, man.
Right.
Who would you pick? Who would be your second?
I did call Brock and tell him to throw out a little promo. Brock Lesnar, do a little promo for me for my high school ministry kids. I'm like, all right, just a short little tape. Just film this for me and tell him that you're in my corner. Anybody messes up.
Is he going to send it?
Oh yeah.
Do you think any young man would survive step into your front door? You and Brock open up the door. You're like, hey buddy, you want to come in for a tea?
Not a chance.
How would that go, Joey? Do you think?
It would go very hilariously.
You should do that.
One of the reasons I stay in shape today. I've gotten 11
You've got
years.
it, right? That's yeah. And then, so talk about, so with your son getting into fighting, how cool is that to see?
Man, it was
to
so
walk
cool.
down and corner him. Like Troy was your first corner, now you're cornering your son.
It's
this journey.
It's kind of surreal. It's such a cool feeling. And it worked out so perfectly. The UFC called me a couple of years ago and they wanted to do a special on me on the Where Are They Now series that they have. So they came out the week of his fight. So they filmed me and followed me around for 3 days and just like taped everything that I did for 3 days. They went to the fire department with me for a day and then they caught me out at my house and, went riding horses and with my daughter. But my son had a fight that night. So they actually went to his very first fight that he had and filmed him and filmed me in the corner and coaching him. And it was just such a cool experience. And of course he taps the guy out in 30 seconds. And
of course, man, he's a Waterman.
It was so cool to have that first experience of him. Like he's got UFC corner, taping the whole thing.
Yeah. Where does he want to take that? Does he want to take that all the way?
He's kind of unsure right now because he's a father. He's got 3 little girls already at 30 and he's a family man. And, it's not an easy road to go down. I mean, I was 32 when I started, but it was a different world back then than it is now. Yeah. You got guys that are doing this and being successful are full-time. It's full-time MMA.
Your camp, your training, you got to market yourself, right? And they're marketing you and pushing, because they're pushing whoever that next person's going to be. Yeah. So that's all the time.
So it's a big commitment, but, he's so good. He's so talented. I mean, he's a 2-time state heavyweight champion at Greeley West and I got to coach him through that, but just such a stud. But right now he's actually looking to get into the fire department and make a career change. And so that's sometimes a hard road to take to get hired on. It's a big process. So right now he's just working on that.
Love that.
Yeah.
One of the big things you talked about at Coffee Bar was, everybody here, they're business leaders and they've got a platform, right? Whether they run a company of 5 or 500, they're out in the community, they're speaking. So you're just talking about the importance of using your platform well. So share just with anybody watching, right? It's like you could just have one person working in your company. Like that's a platform. Everybody counts likes and views and followers. And we talked about that. Like it's all vanity. It's all whatever, whether you're speaking to 1, 10, 100.
It really
platform.
is,
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter to me if it is a platform of 1 or it's a platform of 100. You're the president of a Fortune 500 business that you're trying to run. It's how are you leading those people? What example are you showing them? And you've got people looking at you that you may have no clue that look at you, every move you make. And we just talked about, sometimes it's our actions that speak the loudest. But God uses everybody. And like I told the group this afternoon, like people come up to me all the time, like, how can you claim to be a Christian and you're stepping into the octagon and punching some guy in the face and you're beating some guy up, until he taps out. And I would always say, God needs us in every aspect, every walk of life. He needs somebody that's a Jesus follower. And that created such a platform. Like, I mean, national television, and I get to quote scripture and give praise to God, not to myself, and point my finger up instead of inward, and use that platform that he gave me. And I mean, I've shared Christ with so many people on that stage and in that environment that, I mean, just let God use me. Tell me how you can use me and who I can talk to and when I can share. And I, no limits, man. I just let it rip.
I love it. No, I love what you're doing. And it was funny because I was reading out the resume, just all the things. I'm like, what haven't you done? And it's like you've been in so many places and so many spaces to use what you've got to make an impact. And right, it's like you've had every opportunity in every one of those to go worldly with it, focus on the money and focus on the fame, right? And you're just leaning in. Super cool.
Yeah. I mean, you figure out pretty fast that the difference between a worldview and a godly view, and where does God want you, and where can God use me, and not the materialistic get rich quick thing that the world wants you to buy into.
Love it. Well, man, we spent quite a bit of time together today. I really appreciate you being here and hanging. And we wrap every podcast up the same way. You have a statement that you want to leave with the world when you leave it. What did you put down?
You know, I've been an evangelist my whole life, so that's what I'm going with. So mine says, our time on this earth is short. Where will you spend eternity?
Ron Waterman. It's a wrap.
God bless you, brother.
Thanks, sir.
You betcha.
Thanks for watching. If you liked what you saw, drop a comment below. Make sure to watch the next episode, and don't forget to subscribe. If you're a business owner looking to improve your life, leadership, faith, family, and business, I've got a couple of free things that I'd love to share with you. So go to mattshoup.com and download my free tools. I guarantee these couple of things will get you started off in the right direction.